Hi, this is Silver Dave. Are precious metal the best safe haven against a inflating currency? Is it? Maybe something else is better. Well, let's find out. We know that precious metals are a safe haven asset against the dollar. And we buy it because we take it as an insurance policy, a physical insurance policy, that it will hedge against the dollar being debased and devalued. But are there other currencies or fiat currencies that perform similar to gold and silver? And the answer might surprise you. Yes, there are. There is one currency in the world that historically has performed as good, or if not better than gold, at hedging against the dollar. And that currency is the Japanese yen. So, what did the Japanese yen do that's so good against the dollar? Well, the Japanese yen was considered historically for a long time as a significant hedge against the US dollar. And how people would buy the yen when they expected the dollar to either suffer from inflation or be debased. It was a very stable currency. The government of Japan is a very stable democratic government, and therefore their currency was considered a safe haven. We can see that after 2008, actually the Japanese yen went up. You can't see from this side, but it appreciated relative to the dollar. And afterwards, as the US economy started ramping up, very similar to gold, the Japanese yen fell, but at a much faster pace. And we can see that the relationship between the Japanese yen, I'm going to cover this up, I'll show you this later, historically has been very close to gold. That means that the yen followed gold relatively closely. And they trade almost as if they were a pair. They stay very stable with each other, not going through the same cycle as the US dollar and gold. As you can see here, it's very different, right? Until 2019. Now, we are in 2020, obviously, and something happened in 2020. We had global shutdowns. Is the Japanese yen in 2020 still as the same as it was in 2008 versus the US dollar? Is it still as good as a safe haven as precious metals? I'm going to try to answer that. This isn't a very in-depth technical analysis, but this is more just some observation looking at the graphs and looking at the fundamentals of sort of the global situation, right? What's different today from 2008? Well, 2008 was more a financial crisis. It was purely a financial crisis caused by bad mortgage securities, just very horrible mortgage securities that were sold to different pensions, insurance companies, and basically they were just garbage. And people realized they were garbage and they dumped them, and their values tanked, and governments had to bail out pension funds, insurance companies, banks who held these securities to avoid a banking and financial system collapse. That was very specific to the United States. Not every single country suffered the same amount, but because the United States of America is the largest economy in the world, everybody had to follow suit. And what you saw in 2008 was the Japanese yen appreciated during quantitative easing of the United States, and so did gold. And when the United States economy was back on track, it started trading, it started going down relative to the price of the dollar, and so did gold start going down. That's why during this whole time, gold traded as a pair. You know, it was almost flat line relative to Japanese yen. So what's different in 2020? In 2020, the main difference is we're no longer in a financial crisis. This is a crisis. It's a physical crisis. It's not like a numbers crisis or some sort of crisis resulting from people in finance. It is a physical, real world crisis that affects real core parts of manufacturing, service sectors, and the economy. In 2020, I believe that the Japanese yen, and going forward from 2020, in dealing with this recession, the Japanese yen is not a safe haven compared to gold. I believe that gold and other precious metals will outperform any type of currency in existence because no government is spared from doing what they have to do in order to get the economy back on track, which means fiscal stimulus and monetary policy changes. So let's see what happened in 2020. Well, in 2020, gold went up against the yen. It broke a sort of peg that it had for over 10 years to the yen. It just smashed the peg. Did silver do the same thing? Silver did exactly the same thing. Silver was almost between, during the early period, it was trading above. Silver is a bit more volatile, but for the majority of the 10 years, it was also trading at the peg. And what we see right now is that it is smashing the peg, completely smashing the peg. So going forward, what do I think will happen with precious metals? Well, going forward, I think all governments are going to look at what's going to happen at the US elections. They're going to determine what is the amount of fiscal stimulus that the United States will do, and they'll adjust their currencies to stick to the United States dollar. If we were to consider that the Japanese yen was a safe haven currency against the US dollar, we should see in 2020 it perform the same as gold or silver, but we're not. It is pretty much still tied to the US dollar. It's slightly forward moving, but it's not a massive change. So, what do I think will happen to the price of gold? And let's see, silver. And here I have a safe haven currency. This is Japanese yen to gold and Japanese yen to, or silver to Japanese yen. I believe that for these precious metals, they will completely smash any type of currency we have. And I don't think we'll go back to using these as the main source of currency, but I think a lot of countries will start buying gold and silver to preserve their purchasing power. And more specifically, I believe that the economies that are recovering faster, that is China and right now it's pretty much only China, that are recovering faster will start hoarding gold and silver because it will be the only way they can preserve their purchasing power before the United States introduces any massive stimulus bills. So, what will happen to the price of gold and silver? I think gold and silver is going to have a lot of upward pressure looking at this. This is, I think it's an opinion. This is not deep analysis. There's no deep fundamentals. I'm not an economist or financial analyst, but I believe that you're going to have a lot of upward pressure on precious metals going forward for the next, until we see the end of the tunnel, which could take anywhere between 1 year to 30 years. So that's some fun things you need to think about, especially since now we're discovering that they're having setbacks in terms of the viral, in terms of vaccination, and they're having side effects. And in my opinion, this is just looking back at what happened in the past. If we look at smallpox, it took what, 50 years to eradicate smallpox? We only eradicated it in the 70s. and you have mumps, rubella, polio. These diseases, when we discovered a vaccine for these diseases, they were not eradicated immediately. I mean, there was hope for them to be eradicated, but it took years for it to be eradicated. You know, it's not a exact science. The development of a vaccine is science, but it's not like you're doing simple science or you're trying to calculate how far you can throw a ball. It involves also making sure that people adopt it. There's a lot of human factors in it, and human factors are slow. People like status quo, and people are scared of new things. So yeah, it's going to, even if we have a vaccine, I think it'll take a long, long time before we start seeing the elimination of the virus. And who knows, there might be another virus that comes out in a few years. I always say that you know, humans, we've become the largest biomass on the planet. And if you're a bacteria or a virus and you want to survive on this planet, you better get pretty good at infecting humans relative to anything else out there. That is a fact. If you want to survive as a bacteria or virus, they better get pretty good at infecting humans relative to anything else out there. So, on that joyful note, if you enjoyed the video, feel free to click a like button, or and don't forget the bell notification button. Feel free to comment in the video, like and subscribe. Thank you for watching. This is Silver Dave.